April 18th, 2025. We are 6 days away from the NFL draft, and it's Talking Giants brought to you by SeatGeek. With me today, I have Dan Schneier from CBS Sports and Big Blue Banter. You've heard his voice before. He's a familiar voice. Dan's the man. We both got a lot going on. Dan's going crazy. We were saying before we recorded that this is probably the most hellish time of the year when it comes to football on the football calendar. And the crazy thing is that there's not even any football being played. But we love it. We're 6 days away. Dan, how are you, man?
I'm doing great. I mean, you said it best. At this time of year, for the last 2 or 3 years, Nick and I on Big Blue Banter, we've done a podcast a day in the month of April. And when you're doing that while also manning a full-time job outside of the podcast, which I do, it means every day kind of gets to 5, 6 p.m. and you just like, we're going nonstop, either recording or doing work. And then you take your breath and then you go on, you have your night or whatever it be. But like for me, these nights, a lot of them I found this new service through work, which is unbelievable. I'm so pissed. I only found it like 8 days ago, Justin, that has specific cut-ups of film. So instead of me just watching full games of players, which I've been doing the entire process for years, it's every pass rushing snap, or it's every run stop.
Is it a specific YouTube channel that does that?
No, this is
it's a service.
Film. Yeah, it's something.
I don't know, Dan. Maybe DM that to me.
I can. It's through CBS, and I can't even get it to Nick, which is the sad part, because he would even do even more with it. So,
all right, you guys got to FaceTime together.
yeah, you could do. I could do it that way. Then maybe I won't get in trouble. But so I've been spending nights trying to watch players, especially now we have these top 30 visits with the Giants, and the Giants selected 10 players in the last 3 draft classes.
It seems to be a Shane.
I gotta know all those players because one of them could be a Giant. So I've been watching some of those. So it's fun. I'll say that. It's a busy time of year, but this is the most fun time of year as well.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, and it gives you
sad. That's how bad we are. Sorry to cut you off.
No, but it also, I mean, it gives you a chance, and why I think people love the draft every year is it kind of gives you a chance to dream and what could your team look like? Right. How could you get better? One of the lines that I've liked to say as the years have gone on is, the New York Football Giants are going to be a better team tomorrow than what they are today by the time free agency and the draft comes up. So you get to dream about that. So is there a specific theme or big picture goal that you want the Giants to accomplish this year in this draft? This could even be related to where the draft is at its strongest, like the trenches. Do you want to walk away from this draft and the Giants accomplish finding their quarterback, taking advantage of a deep running back class? Kind of where are you at based on your rooting interest when it comes to what do you want the Giants to accomplish this draft, and does that intersect with the strengths or the weaknesses of this draft?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I think as any listener of Big Blue Banter will note, I am always somebody who likes to draft into a strength of a class. I don't look at the draft as something about filling your roster for today. I look at it as filling it for tomorrow. The best teams are not filling needs. They're not going, I need a safety more than a receiver. Let me take a safety. They're going, this is the strength of the class. It's very hard to get guys right outside of the top 10 or 15 in most classes. In this class, I'd basically say it's outside of the top 3 and then Genty, wherever you want to take him. And there's a very few short things in this class. So when you get to those picks at 34, 65, whatever it may be, you need to make sure the player's right, not the position is right. So in my mind, I want to get to drafting to the strength of this class. But at the same time, Justin, one thing that's been really important to me looking back, and I've made this mistake at times throughout my years as an analyst and a fan of getting really excited about a receiver here or a playmaker here or a running back here or whatever it may be, a corner even, because those guys play on the outside. I think a big theme for me in this draft is prioritize the trenches.
Yes.
Because the best teams in the NFL are not doing it the same way. They're not getting too excited by that wide receiver when it's either the receiver or the trench guy. The Ravens, the Eagles, these teams that keep winning, the Chiefs, look at their draft history on the defensive line. They're taking trench players because they understand this game is won really simply. It really feels like to me when I watch the NFL, it's won on the offensive line, it's won on the defensive line, and it's won at quarterback. That is simply what seems to me to be the winning formula over and over and over for NFL teams. And the Giants can go ahead, Justin, and be like, we're sitting at 34. I kind of really like Elijah Arroyo's tape. We brought him in. He looks freaking good and exciting. He'd be a weapon for us, just like Evan Ingram was a weapon for us when we took him over Ryan Ramczyk and TJ Watt. Or they could look at it like, we need to make sure that we can't get too tempted by these weapons and these exciting, explosive players. We have to really solidify both trenches, like both sides of the ball. Like, here's a big thing for me, Justin. A lot of people, Joe Shane may be included. I hope not, but Joe Shane may be included. May look at pick 34 as a pick like, I kind of like how our offensive line looked for the first 6 games before Andrew Thomas got hurt and we had to kick Illuminor over from right to left. If I draft an offensive lineman here, he may not play at all his rookie year. And I don't know if I can do that because my job's on the line. I don't want to look at it like that.
No,
I
you
want to
cannot.
look at it like if you got a good grade on one of these guys at 34, and I like Tyler Booker a lot, I like Josh Carnerly a lot. If he falls to that, I like Donovan Jackson.
Yep.
Take him because he's an offensive lineman. You don't really have a future on the offensive line in my mind outside of definitely Andrew Thomas. Maybe Illuminor re-signed. It's going to be expensive. I'm not a John Michael Schmitz guy. I'm going to give him one more year. I hope he turns it around. Both guard spots I think will be and can be upgraded in their future. Even Runyon, I don't think is a long-term fixture there.
No, not at all.
You look at it like, again, he may not help me today. I'm not drafting for today, but am I drafting for tomorrow? And in the end, that's my big theme for this draft. Make sure we build out the trenches because I'm at the point where I understand the importance of it, and I'm not going to get swayed again by the shiny object at receiver.
I agree with you, and this is something that I've said a couple times this month, and I'm gonna continue to repeat it. I think the NFL is cyclical, and I think it goes through cycles. In terms of, hey, we're identifying the strengths of the draft, but also what do NFL teams need and what are NFL teams prioritizing as well. And I think they're seeing, well, the only way that Patrick Mahomes has ever been able to be beaten in the Super Bowl is by pass rushers that have pass rushes and pass rushers that are able to put him on his ass. And then also this past year, no matter how good you think Joe Thuney is, Joe Thuney, a guard playing tackle, was a big reason why the Kansas City Chiefs weren't able to kind of protect up front. So you look at both of those things, the strength of where the Philadelphia Eagles are, the offensive line, the defensive line, how they've won their 2 Super Bowls, their last 2 ones, and then how Patrick Mahomes has been basically defeated when nobody's been able to do that. The 2 ways that he's been able to been defeated is the Chiefs' lack of offensive line, but I think more importantly, the pass rush, the interior, the edge, and the complementary team that they have there in Philly. So I think the NFL is going to look at that as a league and also identify that, hey, edge class, deep, interior D-line, deep, offensive tackle / interior offensive line, pretty deep. There's some
I wouldn't
tackles.
say that deep, but has some interesting guys, yeah.
Yeah. And here's even a question for you, too. Because I put out this tweet on the 9th of April, so the consensus board probably has changed, but probably hasn't changed that much. The Giants have 5 picks inside the top 105. Those I view as the premium-ish picks for the Giants. If you're inside the top 100, I consider that like, hey, it's those are nice picks to have, right? So they have 5 inside the top 105. What position has the most players inside the top 105?
Easily for me, it's interior defensive line.
They have.
Oh, sorry. Wait. Running back. I forgot about
running back. Has 7. Same as quarterback.
Okay.
And same as tight end. There are 19 edge players inside the top 105.
Wow.
There are 15 wide receivers, which I feel like that's low because there's 3 wide receivers out on the field, at most times, at least 60 to 70% of NFL snaps, there's 3 wide receivers out on the field. There are 12 interior defensive linemen inside the top 105, which, Jimmy, you want to talk about a position that sometimes teams they're trying to get the big guys off the field to put the faster, lighter guys on the field. There's 12 of them, which is crazy, which is, there's more interior defensive linemen inside the top 105 than offensive tackle, kind of to your point. So, I'm with you, man. My only worry is that I think the league is going to also prioritize it. Like, I hope the Giants do, and I think Joe Schoen will too. It kind of seems like, based on some of the moves that he's made with the offensive line, like they're going to try their best to not get in a spot where they have to put guards at tackle. The depth that they have is not great, but it's there. Like the depth is there that they have. I'm worried that if Joe Schoen also believes it, I'm also worried that X amount of other NFL teams are also going to prioritize the same thing. So then how quickly are some of those players going to go off the board? And if you want to prioritize, like you said, like a tight end or a running back or even a receiver, you want to prioritize one of those picks with the premium pick. Oh, but that we have Alfred Collins and Norman-Lott and all these interior defensive linemen that are still going to be on the board at, like, let's say 65. Those guys may fly off the board. So that's the only thing that I'm worried about in the back of my mind when it comes to this draft. That I think the NFL might prioritize the same things that we're saying, sitting here talking about this draft too.
It's certainly a concern of mine as well, especially because you're thinking about teams understanding the draft board, drafting into the strength of the class. But I will say this, guys always slip on the interior defensive line, and it's just something that's been happening at the draft for a while. Same thing for linebacker and running back.
Before we keep talking with Dan Schneier of the Big Blue Banter podcast, I got to talk to you about Cushy Dreams. Where did the phrase 420 come from? Is it named after a police code for a marijuana violation, or is it my Little League batting average However, it started. It's a real holiday on April 20th, and we're celebrating it with our friends at Cushy Dreams. They're the best in legal cannabis, and this 420 is their 5th anniversary. How about it? They're celebrating with the big 30% off sale and free limited edition swag. Right now, you could take 30% off on all their best stuff: high-powered THCA flower, chill smokable CBD euphoric, love that word, THC gummies, and other THC pre-rolls that get the job done. And since you're a fan of us, you get a special deal on Cushy Dreams Cannabis, 30% off everything, and every over $50 enters you to win a Cushy Dreams t-shirts and free THC products. So go to cushydreams.com. That's KUSHY dreams.com. Use promo code JOHNBOY420 for 30% off your next order for even greater savings. Get 30% off and enter to win free stuff with promo code JOHNBOY420 today. Back to the interview. Another big picture thought. I had this, thought after listening to Joe Schoen's presser and hearing how many people were involved at Colorado's Pro Day, like 14, 15 people. I have a nice little camera that I use at the Senior Bowl, and I'm like, hey, look, there's Chris Mara. Haven't seen you in a couple years. I'm starting to get a little worried about that there may be too many chefs in the kitchen. And I am thinking about, and we probably won't get any answers when it comes to this, but I am dying to know what this Giants draft process looks like versus Joe Schoen's first 3 drafts. John Mara comes out and says in January that he's not sure this roster is much better than the one that Joe Schoen inherited just 3 years ago from Dave Gettleman, which is crazy. Like, when he said that is a crazy thought, and both of these guys are back, which I don't agree with, and I know you don't agree with that as well. You probably thought that they should have been fired, right?
Yes.
So I am now like, is this a thought that's running through your head at all about the Giants draft process? And is this process, how different is it from Joe Schoen's first 3 years? Because you have to think, if John Mara is saying this criticism about the Giants roster and Joe Schoen's process and how he goes about things and his decisions, there inevitably, you would think, has to be more people involved this year that are stemming from ownership that maybe have not been involved in years past. Is that something that you're kind of thinking about when it comes to the Giants and their draft decision process this cycle?
I'll be honest with you, Justin. I never really get into this stuff because I find it to be a lot of speculation. And
I know.
And I will say this, though, to what you brought up, because I don't think it's impossible to suggest that this is in play, especially when you're telling me that you were at the Senior Bowl, Justin, and you saw people from the Giants organization that are in the Mara family that haven't been there recently. I think it's possibly in play, and I'll tell you what, it scares the hell out of me that this could be in play, because this doesn't really make any sense as to how it could help them become a winning franchise. He said before, John Mara, that I don't get involved. I don't want to get involved. I want to let Joe Schoen play it out. I feel like when he hired Joe Schoen in this regime, he's like, the reason for me doing this is because I believe he can, do this on his own, and I'll let him do it on his own. And then it's like, my Mara voice is not great. Nick has a great John Mara voice. Mine gets like very Batman-y, Christian Bailey. But, he said that, and I would hope that these guys don't get involved, because it's like any organization in anything, not just sports. Like, when you start getting the family involved and they're telling the GM and the scouts, the people who know football and have spent the time on football, what they should be doing or considering, it's not typically a good business model. So, look, if you're noticing it, that means it might be in play. I'm certainly worried about that, though.
Yeah, the who... Not just who they're going to pick at 3, because that's what everybody's interested in, or even forget pick 3. But, I'm thinking just about like their approach to quarterback, and, is pick 34 going to be like a Jalen Milroe? And then again, you're walking away from possibly a good offensive lineman, a good interior defensive lineman, or an edge rusher that falls. So who is thinking what in that building is something that is running through my brain right now. And we're not going to get answers on that. There's no cameras for Hard Knocks, which I wish there was. I wish they made them do that every year, because that would just be so fun for us. It would be embarrassing to them, but it would be so fun for us. But that's the main thing that's kind of running through my brain right now. It's like, who is thinking what, and how much power and leverage do they have in this situation? Especially when, Mara came out at the end of the season, said, our number one priority is to find the next franchise quarterback this offseason, and they may walk away from that only having one quarterback under contract going into 2026, and that's Jameis Winston for $4 million. So I'm fascinated by that. One final thing I want to ask you. big picture. I saw you tweeting about this. Definitely, I feel comfortable staying at pick 3. Like Travis Hunter, Abdul Carter, hell yeah. And if they take Shedeur, then they take Shedeur, and we'll deal with that. I'm not totally for it, but we'll get excited by it eventually, right? Travis Hunter, Abdul Carter, getting one of them would be sick, and we'll talk about it this or that in just a couple minutes. But trading back at possibly pick 34 and manipulating the draft that way to identify the strength of the draft, which I feel is in picks like 50 to 100. I feel like there are a ton of players, running back, even receiver if they want to go in that direction, interior defensive line, a bunch of guys that are like projected between 50 to 100. Are you open to trading back at pick 34 or even manipulating the draft in a certain type of way to get more picks in in an area where there could be a ton of players available?
Yeah, I'm more than open to it, Justin. I think this should be something the Giants should strongly consider. This pick 34, it's the top of day 2, essentially, 1 pick off of it, or 2 picks off it. I'm not exact. Yeah, 1 pick off of it. And it's a prime position for teams to trade up for. And if we look at the past years, there have been a lot of trade ups into this range, and it's not always for a quarterback, because not a lot of people believe you need to trade up for a quarterback at the top of round 2. If you're going to do it, you're going to trade back in round 1. But there are certainly players that fall from different positions, non-quarterbacks, to this spot in 34 that people are like, he should have never been there. He's 14 on our big board. We need to go get him. He's a difference maker, and we don't have many left on our board as far as difference makers go. And if you're the Giants, Justin, and you want to take one of these quarterbacks in round 2, I think your best play is to trade back from 34, recoup an extra second round pick, which you most likely would, or an early 3 or a late 2 or a mid 2. And now you can get the D tackle you might have got at 34. It's not the same guy, but there's a lot of players in that D tackle range that I'd be excited about. The edge, there's a lot of players if they go Hunter round 1 that I'd be excited about. There's offensive linemen I'd be excited about and trade down, while also getting your quarterback. And now, instead of using 34 on Jalen Milroe or Shough or whoever it may be, and not even having the opportunity to draft that position player, you're going to get a position player, maybe not as good, definitely not as good as what you get at 34, but you're going to get somebody who's pretty damn good while also taking that risk at quarterback. And that gamble at quarterback becomes so much, the opportunity cost becomes so much lesser when you do that trade back. And look, you could say, oh, I want the Giants to trade back every year at any position. And you could say that as a fan, and it's pretty much fruitless for the most part, Justin, because most of the time those picks aren't valuable enough for teams to want to trade up for. But 34, the top of day 2 in any class, that is always a value spot that teams want to trade up for. They want to trade up for 3 too, by the way. Joe Shane said it yesterday. He said, I've already received calls on it. I'm just not personally open to it unless they want Shedeur. That's the only scenario where I would want to trade back, but you can't do that, because if you've made the decision that you want Shedeur, you basically have to take him at 3, because you can't risk trading back. And then what happens if somebody gets him? Now what are you going to do? You really put yourself in a bad position. So ultimately, I have no real interest in trading back from 3. My main reason for that, Justin, being I see this as a 2 blue chip class. I actually think once you get past 3, Nick and I may do a mock draft of just round 1 where we play GM for 16 teams apiece. Once you get past 3, like, it gets ugly fast. Like, if it's me, I'll probably take Genty pretty high in this class, despite arguing against it, just because I hate the rest of this class. Like, I'll take Kenneth Grant pretty high. I'll take Derek Harmon in the top 12, top 15 range, because I know some are like, oh, it'd be great if the Giants get Harmon at 34. It seems unlikely to me, but there's just not that many good players, great players, I should say. It's not good players. So I don't want to trade back, because then what am I getting? Mason Graham, who I don't really love personally at all. Like, I don't know, and he may not even be there because Jacksonville's going to take him. So what am I doing here? I'm taking one of these edges I don't fully believe in. So that's my whole thing with trading back from 3 and 34.
Yeah, because I don't know about you, I get so much more excited. Everybody plays GM, you do the mock drafts. I get so much more excited when I get to 65 and 99 by just how many names are there and the options that are there versus 34. Like, 34 is the spot that I'm like hoping and praying, like, Josh Connerly, Donovan Jackson, Darius Alexander. But even like Darius Alexander at 34 could even be a little rich to me. So like that's the spot that I'm most worried about. I get way more excited about like 65, 99, and even 105. Having that, the second or third pick in the 4th round, because I know it alternates. So I'm with you, man. And especially if you want to take a Milroe, if you want to take, a shot on that project, I am way more excited about trading down, recouping extra assets so you can continue to add to more positions and more spots. Way more open to that if they do that. So for the second half of the show, We have 5 this or that's. This or that's NFL draft prospect version. These are all players that the Giants, I believe they've had top 30 visits with. They had a top 30 visit with Norman-Lott too. I'm gonna check
Not
on that.
Norman-Lott, I don't
Not
think.
Norman-Lott. So he's the only player that they did not have a top 30 visit with that we're gonna talk about kind of like in a this or that. We'll start off at the top. We'll pay the bills. Abdul Carter or Travis Hunter. And I think this is a tough decision. And I don't even blame anybody if they don't have a conviction. Do you have a conviction of Abdul Carter or Travis Hunter?
I do have a conviction on this one. So this is a tough one. I just had it back and forth with my brother, diehard Giants fan, about this, and he's on the opposite side of this now. But for me, it's Travis Hunter if I had the option of those two. And my reason being is the term generational prospect is thrown around a lot. It's mostly stupid, but this is an actual generational prospect. And recently, I think it was an hour before recording this, Justin, Browns GM Andrew Berry compared him to Shohei Ohtani, a two-way player in baseball, the MVP of baseball, one of the best players in baseball, which, by the way, means I think we're done on that. I think he's going number 2, but you never know. They liked Carter early in the process. And what really stands out to me about Travis Hunter and why I think he is an actual generational prospect is that when you watch his tape at receiver, despite not having a lot of time to play the position, despite not spending all the time and also playing another position, despite playing snaps in a game at corner, which wears you out, he's the best receiver on tape by far in this class. And it's not particularly close. The way that he releases off the line of scrimmage, it is almost impossible for a defender to play press man against him, to play press, and to stay within him. He can also stack the defender and get vertical. But don't even think about how good he is at the catch point. He plucks away from frame. He's levitates in the air on some of these passes that Shador throws up and just has insane level body control. He's great after the catch. Nick even thinks he's better than Neighbors after the catch. And I've heard, and he's not the first person I've heard say that. Matt Harmon, reception perception, charts film of every receiver, at least 8 games, compared him to prime Odell Beckham Jr. Nate Tice, who I respect, compared him to Ocho Cinco in the way that his footwork works, how he uses his feet to create it. He's everything I want at their wide receiver position. And that doesn't even get into the fact that he also maybe could be a lockdown corner. Now, I think he has more progress to go as a corner than a receiver. I think he's a better receiver than corner right now. But I think what he immediately offers you as a corner is somebody who, if you throw to his side of the field, you better be careful, because not only is he able to break insanely quick click to close on any of the in-breaking routes back to the quarterback, but he's also in zone. He has eyes. So he'll come off. I watch this all the time. He'll come off his receiver and his supposed where his responsibility is, and he'll break on like a crosser or anything like that and intercept a pass or get a hands on a pass that was in his direction but not really intended for him. So if he gets to the point where he gets even better in phase on kind of vertical routes and some of these like man coverage situations, which he has all the athletic tools to do it, he has all the upside to do it, all academic American, no diva in his game at all. By the way, how many receiver prospects or DB skill prospects you see like this with zero diva to their game? He's got zero diva, which I love about him. And if he gets to the point where I think he could get to as a corner, it's going to be to the point where you can no longer afford to throw at his side of the field. No. Very few corners like that, but that's in his range of outcomes. And once you get to that, that's why teams want him. Some teams want him at corner over receiver, because that gives you a bigger advantage as a team. If you're that corner, and there's very few, Darrelle Revis was one of them, very few guys are like that, but it's possible. I really do believe that for him. If you're that corner where teams are scared to throw to your side of the field, as a defensive coordinator now, the world is yours, because you can just use your safeties in a variety of ways. You can do all sorts of things while only using one guy to cut off half the field, and your defense becomes almost unstoppable, like it was for the Jets at times when they had talent around Revis, but sometimes they were injured and sometimes they didn't have depth to fill those injuries, the Jets defense, but it was still dominant because Revis is shutting down half the field. So to me, with Hunter, the upside is a little bit higher. I love Carter too. Don't get me wrong. I literally just watched a cut up of all his pass rushing snaps last night on this service that I have. And my God, I said it in my podcast and I'll say it again. For what I've seen through the years watching prospects, no one bends the edge better than Carter since Von Miller. Von Miller did a better job of it at A&M, but no one since that. He's the best since Von Miller at bending the edge. And the easiest way to get sacks in the NFL is to bend the edge. And that's something that I think he can do, but it's not the only thing he can do. What really excites me about Carter is how he fits our specific scheme and team in this division, right? So I'm watching him play Indiana, I'm watching him play Illinois, and there are a lot of times where Penn State's defensive coordinator, who I think did a great job with him, because remember, he was an off-ball linebacker his whole Penn State career until last year. So he's still learning edge. And in this past year, he'll line him up over the A gap against some of these quarterbacks that have some mobility to them. And he is the spy. And he is so freaking good as the spy. These quarterbacks will break pocket. He closes he closes gap when they're breaking pocket trying to scramble like this. Yep. And guess what? How does that help us? Jaden Daniels is in the division. Jalen Hurts is in the division. If I'm Shane Bowen and we draft Abdul Carter, that's where I want him for those 4 games against Washington and Philly. I want him over the A gap a lot, spying those two, destroying their game plans. You want to look to scramble, you want to make that part of your game plan. Good luck. Carter is more athletic, is athletic enough to cut you off. Not obviously as athletic as Jaden Daniels, but athletic enough to cut him off from that angle. Yep. And so both are super exciting to me. I'm happy with either one.
Dan, I'm ready to go outside and fucking hit something. Jeez.
Let's go, Justin.
I'll start with Hunter. Why I don't think there's much that, like I need to add. Which why Carter's going to be like really set himself apart, at least in my opinion, in the league. It's going to be because he has the ball skills of some of the best wide receivers in the league. Now imagine you could put some of the best ball skills that a wide receiver has and put him at corner and then watch the production that they're going to have. Because I truly am a believer in, I don't mind my CB1s getting targeted, right? Like I don't mind it. Now I think, like you said, there's going to come to a point where offensive coordinators are literally going to say, we cannot target him, and that will be a different case. But even if early on, if teams want to try and challenge him, I want my CB1s going up and being targeted because I should have the confidence in my cornerback 1 to go up and get a pass defense, a pass deflection, a forced incompletion, or even an interception, which Travis Hunter did, and I think he's going to do at the next level if he gets kind of consistently targeted. And I'm with you where I don't view Hunter as like this clean cut, just perfect cornerback prospect. Like, I think he can play lower. I think he's sometimes, because he doesn't play with such great leverage and because he doesn't really get low and sink his hips, then I think he can get into trouble. Maybe can get a little grabby at the top. So that's what I see a little bit in Hunter, but you just make up for it when you have arms that are a little bit over 31 inches, which is about average. I think it's in like the 47th percentile, but anything over 30 inches gets a thumbs up for me in the NFL. You have arms that are over 30 inches, 31 inches, and the closing speed, the ball skills, like everything, just to recognize the same shit that makes you elite at wide receiver. Yeah. You're going to bring that to a cornerback. That's why I think he is going to be like, that's where I think he's going to fully set himself apart, especially as a corner. But yeah, he's going to be a Brown because also the crazy thing is that probably the Browns need a more receiver than they do at corner.
Yeah, they've said that. Yep.
Which is crazy. Like everybody I think has,
so do the Giants, to be completely honest with you.
Yeah. Yeah, mind, that's it's interesting. Both of these guys' fits on this team, of Carter and Hunter, is very interesting and fascinating.
It is, but here's the thing with Hunter. If the Giants, let's say, were lucky enough to draft him, and let's say they said, you know what, we're going to start him mostly at receiver. From a schematic standpoint, you run a 3-by-1 set. With Hunt, I think the best way to do it is to have Hunter as the lone one on the backside of a 3-by-1 set. You have Neighbors as the slot in the on the 3 side.
Slayton.
It's now almost impossible to defend this team as long as the quarterback is just semi-competent, which we haven't had for years, but as long as he's just semi-competent. And let's be honest, Russ was semi-competent last year and 100%. Really on his Broncos days. Because now your options are this. You start with this by being like, all right, I cannot let certain route concepts develop on the 3 side. So that's where my focus is as a defense. So now we start by doing Hunter lined up one-on-one on the outside as the boundary receiver with not a lot of safety help. That's screwed. You're immediately screwed on that. Hunter will destroy that all day. Russ will see that one-on-one. Russ did a great job of diagnosing one-on-ones early. And similar to what I saw with Tyrod in 2023 with the Giants, he was able to do the quick 3-step or 5-step drop, bang, hit your back foot, and get the ball out. Something Jones, for some reason, never recognized.
That's Russell Wilson's quick game. I made a video about this. Russell Wilson's quick game is the moon ball.
Yes, which is great because if you have the one-on-one with Hunter, he's beating that almost every time. And even if the rare times he doesn't beat that, he has the ball skills to go up and make a play and draw a PI or just catch this crazy catch.
And Russ will throw the contested ball, which Daniel Jones just never did,
which wouldn't want to do. And Drew Lock
despite having the personnel for it.
Yeah, and I really did Drew Lock. Like, he wasn't playing that position at that level either. So Now you start to see the safety shade over because you have to take away this one-on-one. He's too good, Hunter. That opens up so much for Neighbors in the slot on the 3 side. So it just becomes really difficult to defend this team, and it becomes a two-man game, as the Vikings have done, right? Like, what made Sam Darnold break out last year? A lot of people have discussed it. Is it KOC? All these are factors, but the biggest factor to me is Addison was healthy, and he played his best football, and he became what they drafted him to be, Jordan Addison. And now they have Jefferson on one side, and Addison is just getting these one-on-one looks over and over and over again. And they ran basically a two-man game. Hockenson got a few targets, a few other guys, but it was essentially just Jefferson and Addison, a really difficult to defend two-man game. And so that's what it would be with Hunter and Neighbors, as long as Russ was competent. And I do think Russ could be competent with those two guys.
Yeah, I'm ready to go. I'm ready to hit something. That's awesome. That's awesome.
Yeah.
You got me excited a little bit. Carter's going to be sick too. But I do think that's I think Hunter's going to go too, and then we'll have a choice of Carter or Shedeur, and I hope they take Carter, and I think that would be sick too. And it become, I think good problems to have. I'm picking up Kayvon's 5th-year option, and whether we're going to play out this year, and whether he's a trade candidate next year, and then you can recoup maybe a little bit of a premium pick for that. Second, third rounder. I would be fine moving in that direction as well. So, next one, quarterback, but not top of the draft. Tyler Shough or Jalen Milroe? Where are you leaning?
So the answer and I was looking at this question before, and I was thinking about how I'll frame this. Neither is the answer for me at 34, if I'm going to be honest. And it sucks to say, but I am of the belief, if I don't believe long-term in the upside of these prospects, and I'll get to that in a moment why I do have an answer, but if I don't believe, I don't want to give up a player. Now, if they trade back from 34, like I mentioned earlier, I would take one of these players, and I'll tell you which one I prefer strongly now at this point to the other. And if they take the player I'm about to discuss at 34, I'll find a way to be pretty excited about it, to be honest, because of the upside. And for me, it's Jalen Milroe over Tyler Shough, without a doubt. Now, let me get into we'll start with, should I start with Milroe or Shough here?
Start with Milroe.
On both. Okay, start with Milroe. When it comes to Milroe, for me, what I'm looking for when I draft a quarterback is I want to make sure that I have a chance to get a guy who's top 10 in the NFL as an upside. And I'm really honestly looking, Justin, for top 5, top 6, top 7 range.
I think that's where you should aim.
Why am I looking at? There's 2 reasons. One, once you have to sign him to that second contract, the way that the NFL works, it doesn't matter. It's not a merit-based contract, your second contract. It's just you are now the highest paid player in the NFL, Dak Prescott, Jordan Love, whatever it may be, despite not being worth that highest paid. So that's what you get. If you win enough games and you prove to be, quote unquote, the franchise quarterback, they have no option, these teams. They just give you the most money. Now you're working with a short deck when it comes to filling out the rest of your team. So the only way that ends up working long-term is if you're damn good enough, top 5, top 7, top 10 at worst, to be that. That's reason 1. Reason 2, why I don't like drafting what I deem to be limited ceiling upside prospects at quarterback is I kind of think you can get that in free agency for nothing. Russell Wilson is going to be about the 5th. Some people are like, no, he's like the 20th. I don't know. Look at the deep passing numbers and what he was able to do last year from some standpoints. He's basically, to me, like the 15th, 16th, 17th best quarterback range. And if that's kind of the ceiling I see for you as a quarterback in the NFL, I'm certainly not going to draft you early, personally. So why do I like Milroe? I think Milroe's, honestly, outside of Ward, the only quarterback prospect I see who could potentially get into the top 5, top 7. Now, he's a much lower floor than a lot of these prospects, but the reason why I would say Milroe has the upside of potentially being a top 5, top 7 is first and foremost his ability as a rusher. So some people are like, wow, you're talking about a quarterback as a rusher, but understand the importance of being the dynamic threat that he is as a rusher, as a quarterback, and what it means to the NFL. First of all, and this is an important thing that I've heard a lot of draft analysts echo, and I completely agree with, Justin. It's not my original point, but I completely agree with. You have a much higher floor when you have this type of prospect than supposed high floor passer types, because these passer types get to the NFL and they see a completely different defensive scheme. They lost all the spacing to the field side that the college offered, and a lot of the times they are not able to be efficient passers that they were, and they have no other option. The pass protection breaks down, the pocket gets muddy, they don't have the arm talent to throw off their back foot, and they don't really have any solutions off platform. And the offensive coordinator can't just work in a design quarterback run game like we've seen Brian Dable do multiple times, and he's like looking at his quarterback situation, like even with Locke, he did it. Like, oh, this guy can't really do much in the passing game outside of the obvious layups, so I'm going to run quarterback bash. I'm going to design a quarterback zone read game. And so a running quarterback like Milroe gives you that right away. And we're not just talking about a running quarterback, Justin. We're talking about someone who timed GPS faster than Jahmyr Gibbs when he was on the team. Jahmyr Gibbs, one of the fastest players in the NFL. He ran a 4.4 flat. I think he's even faster than that game speed from the film I've seen. I think he's closer to a 4.35. I've seen multiple times where he won the edge against linebackers and safeties who are trying to float to the edge with the angle on him. He beats them with the angle. I see them run quarterback bash and inside concepts where he's darting in and out of tackles, bang, hits the vertical and just explodes down the field at a thick 221, excellent frame, one of the best frames in this class at the quarterback position for a long-term longevity standpoint. And then the numbers just back it up. He had 12 rushing touchdowns of 10 plus yards in 2024. That was the most by a quarterback ever. That beats Lamar Jackson at 11 in 2016 and 2017. He had 12 of 10 plus. 20% of his 2024 carries, this is a crazy number, 1 of every 5, was a 10-yard rush or more. And here's what I like a lot about him as well. When you watch the tape, it's not just here's a running quarterback like Justin Fields or something that really has no touch or really can't do anything in the passing game. There are moments in the passing game where he does things different. Like he's a lot like Justin Fields, I think, from the idea of like not very refined as a passer. Really
doesn't deal with pressure well.
But Justin Fields, and you watched this last year with the Steelers as well, and then throughout his career, on the deep half, he's just darting the ball. It's going line drive. Jalen Milroe puts touch on his deep throws. He was graded as the best passer, 40-plus yards from PFF over the last 2 seasons from an accuracy standpoint. And you could see so many times throughout his tape where he put a ball out there on the vertical path, and it was dropped by a Bama receiver. And sometimes it was caught for a big play. But a lot of his plays were just explosive in the passing game. He's not just the only runner. I think 16 passing touchdowns he had in 2024, which was a step back, but they averaged 36.6 yards per passing touchdown. Just gives an idea of like what he offers you, right? And what I like about him the most is a lot of these quarterbacks, what I worry about when it comes to arm talent, this is why I'm a big arm talent guy. When you get to the NFL, you sit in a pocket and things look great on the college tape when you're able to hitch into your throws into the pocket and just deliver the ball. You looks like you have decent arm strength, good arm strength. But in the NFL, you're going to see a lot of situations where the size of the defensive line and the size of the players and the speed of the game is muddying that pocket early. Yeah. And you need to be able to generate something on your throw from an arm talent standpoint, from a velocity standpoint, where you can do it off your back foot, where you can do it where you don't need to hitch into the throw from a balanced base. And that's something I saw with Jalen Milroe a lot at Alabama. He'll sit in that pocket. He's not afraid to get hit. He'll even navigate it a little bit. I think he's better navigating the pocket as a thrower than when he has to roll out. And then he'll just bang off that back foot and rip a ball 50 yards down the field. That's not something I see from every quarterback. And it's important to me because I talked to someone who works closely with the Buffalo Bills. And when Dable came over to the Giants, I asked him, like, wow, I've seen a lot of fans soured on Dable a lot during his late years with the Bills. Like, what happened here? I thought this was all great here. And he said, I think what Dable relied on a lot was having a freak like Josh Allen who is able to drop back into the pocket, set his landmark in the pocket, and when that pass rush comes, he can just sit in the pocket, Allen, and then rip one of those vertical, and you know how Dable loves the vertical intermediate route concepts. Yep. You can just rip it and sit from that back foot and rip it. And that's more of an Allen thing. That's not going to work for every quarterback because a lot of these quarterbacks really need to hitch into the throw. Daniel Jones was one of those players. I think Shedeur Sanders is one of those. I 100%
think Shedeur. Like we're talking about throwing off the back foot. They
it's
sure
not
ain't
there
doing that.
What you're expecting. But if you're a coach, you can rely on these players. So it's not there all yet for Milroe. I mean, there's so many. You watch his play. There's so many issues. He has small hands. He misses the layup throws. Yep. He does make a lot of interesting throws though too. Like he'll rip outside the number and he'll rip some of these like intermediate in breakers where you're like, wow, he read that coverage and he came back to the backside of this and just made that rip. Like he'll have flashes and moments, and I think that speaks a lot to the fact that he was the Heisman, the academic Heisman, the William K. V. Campbell Trophy winner. He's a 2-time a master's degree in sports management in addition to graduating cum laude in business. Like he's a smart dude who scouts have called extremely grounded, tremendous attitude, 2-time team captain, like has all of that stuff going for him, which leads me to believe that maybe it's possible that he can get better at that at the level. But right now it's not somebody you would draft to start, right? Because he's some alarming stats I have on him that I was looking at. Completed just 52.8% of his passes on 3rd and 4th down. That is not good. And you could see it in the South Carolina game. Some of these coordinators just absolutely ate him in the Michigan game, obviously. Some of these coordinators absolutely ate him up. And I wasn't there at the Senior Bowl, but I've heard he was really rough at the Senior Bowl. It's not a player you just draft and play right away.
No, you can't.
Think of some of the situations. Jalen Hurts, like these situations players developing, and if Brian Dable's all that he's cooked up to be as this guy that we're hoping he is, because we just, we didn't fire him, we brought him back. Yep. This seems like the prospect I can get on board with. Insane, elite athletic tools as a runner will give you an advantage there. You can design stuff for him right away, but then also has more arm talent and a quicker release and an explosive throw. That's like the thing I come back to. I was breaking down tape 2 years ago, Justin, with I believe it was with Matt Sims, and he came on the podcast and we broke down Tyrod Taylor versus the Bills, that game from like 2 years ago. Mm-hmm. And there was a play Tyrod made, I don't know if you remember this, where he had to roll out his opposite throwing shoulder to his left. He rolled out of a muddy pocket and then fired a ball to Jalen Hyatt like 45 yards down the field that Hyatt tried to tiptoe in, drag his feet. They ruled it out of bounds. I think it was a catch. The ref said it wasn't. And as Sims broke down that play, he broke down to Nick and I what Tyrod is able to do. He's an explosive thrower that generates a lot of torque from his lower half. He's not an over-the-top thrower like Daniel Jones was and like Sanders is. They're not the same player, but they both are kind of more of that over-the-top thrower. And I think that Milroe can generate a lot of power from uneven positions, unbalanced base, not having his feet sweat. That means a lot to me at the NFL level with the pass rushes the way they are. So just all the tools I'm looking for, with the exception of maybe accuracy. But I also said this is my final note on this, Justin. I believe that you can kind of get away with that. The Eagles have gotten away with that. Jalen Hurts is not that accurate. I see him missing.
He's horrible under pressure. He is still not good under pressure. He's gotten better. He did have a better year this year than 2 years ago, but still, like, there's issues there.
But there's issues there even now in his best year. There's issues there, and
just
they're still winning football games because when you can create explosives down the field as a passer, which Hurts is able to do and which Milroe is able to do, and explosives as a runner, it gives you a difference. And this is something I think Nate Tice mentioned that really stood out to me. He spoke with an SEC defensive coordinator, and he's like, any day, 100 times and 100 times, I'm taking Jalen Milroe in this draft over Jackson Dart. And I'll tell you the simple reason why. We did not want a game plan and scheme against Jalen Milroe. We did not give a shit about scheming against Jackson Dart. And that's the difference. He's going to cause problems to scheme against. So that's, for me, Milroe over Shough. For Shough, he was a player I was on to early in the process. Justin, I think on February 11th, I tweeted a hot take. I was like, and this is just from the film, and Nick's a fan of him, and Nick's a bigger fan of Shough than I am. But I tweeted this hot take. I think he might be the best pure passer in this class. I think when you do this job, like as an analyst, and you try to just watch 8 games of these players on all 22, both angles, end zone and sideline, you can really start to see what you really think about these players on tape, not what the consensus says, not what you see on Twitter. And on tape, Tyler Shough is one of the best passers in this class. He gets the ball out on time better than even Shedeur, who supposedly gets it out with anticipation and on time. The ball placement is really good. The arm is explosive. He can make throws from all angles. He plays the quarterback position in a lot of ways like a 25-year-old like he is, because he'll throw the ball away when he doesn't like when he sees. He comes through the progression and he'll throw to the running back a lot because that's what he's being taught to do. And
he's also broken his collarbone like 17 times. So it's like, I am not getting sacked and I am not getting freaking hurt. I'm throwing this ball away.
And he ran a 4.63, so he's not a bad athlete by any means.
Yeah, sure.
But what scares me about Shough and why I've come off on him, I think the tape is better than what I project him to be. Good tape at Louisville. I really like it again. But I think about the NFL, and I think about all those times I watch his tape where the pressure's in and he's throwing off his back foot. He really doesn't want to get hit. No. That type of shit can't work in the NFL. You have to stand tall in that pocket with poise and deliver it and get hit. And I think about what I see and what I project him to be based on that. And I don't know where the ceiling is for him, despite having a good arm, being accurate, getting the ball out on time more than these other quarterbacks, and having downright his Louisville tape is better than most of the tape you're going to see of quarterbacks in 2024. Yeah. I just don't know if that tape against college teams leads to a strong projection versus Milroe, where I'm like, I see the traits, and that's where I'm going with my projection.
Yeah. All right, you know what we got to do? We got to talk about SeatGeek before we keep going, because the MLB season is finally here, and with SeatGeek being MLB's official ticket marketplace, your tickets are fully guaranteed and instantly fulfilled in your account after purchase. How about that? That's awesome. No waiting. I would get anxiety waiting for an email, waiting for some random person to send me my tickets and hoping and praying that would happen. You don't got to wait now. With our partners over at SeatGeek, you can now get 10% off any tickets with code GIANTS2025. SeatGeek is the #1 rated ticketing app in the world. You know this. They have over 70,000 events listed on SeatGeek, including concerts, sports, festivals, and so much more. I'm getting my tickets to Charlotte Motor Speedway Memorial Day weekend from SeatGeek, and each ticket is rated on a scale of 1 to 10, so you know you're getting a good deal. Just look at the green dots, because green means good, red means bad. You know we came through for you guys, too. You can use code GIANTS2025 for 10% off your next set of tickets at SeatGeek. That's 10% off any tickets with promo code GIANTS2025, all one word. Yeah. Back to the interview. I'm with you, and that's why last year the big three of Caleb, Jaden Daniels, and Drake May. That's why you just go, you still go like goo goo gaga over those three, because the traits I think increase the floor.
Yeah,
especially as a runner. Like for me, that's like a prerequisite. I want a quarterback that can move. I will take a quarterback that can improvise within the pocket. Like, hey, I think Joe Burrow does that the best in the NFL. I think Tom Brady retired. Tom Brady was the best at doing that within the pocket.
Yes.
There was even a point, turn on 2011 Eli, and Eli was really freaking good at it.
So good at that.
So there's different ways to extend plays without being Lamar Jackson or Patrick Mahomes and running around like that. But I would still prefer to have a guy that can do both. No shit, Sherlock. What's the most efficient play in football? And I got this stat from Warren Sharp.
I think by EPA it's scramble, right?
It's when a quarterback drops back to pass and then they run. So I mean that's what got Jaden Daniels
built
through
Daniel Jones's EPA in 2022.
Yes, that's why he was
predicated
like
on
ninth, I think. I think that's what got Jaden Daniels through basically the first month of the season before that Bengals game, and then he that deep throw to Terry McLaurin. I think he had a couple of them in that Bengals game. I think it kind of like unlocked some things for Jaden Daniels, but that is kind of how Jaden Daniels got through the first month. Everybody's looking at the EPA and like, it's the 2024 Washington Commanders and the 2007 Patriots that have like some of the highest EPA per plays ever. And I think a lot of it has to do with, we knew going into the year that even though Jaden Daniels has things to kind of work on and clean up,
right,
the fact that he's going to be able to run is going to increase his floor. And I agree with that with Milroe. But 100%, he needs a year. And I even think, I think what the Ravens did with Lamar needs to be studied.
I like that, yeah.
And I know Greg Roman, like this is the type of offense that, he kind of, like that's a perfect coordinator to have for this. But they did bring him along. And I think, hey, maybe as an organization, I think they had the belief in this guy can eventually become a decent thrower, but we're going to do the things necessary to kind of get him there, survive, also be an efficient, explosive offense with the strengths of Lamar. And now Lamar's running an offense where, hey, we can run 11 personnel. We can spread it out and we can do some big boy things. And Lamar is going to make those big boy throws. And I think it's because Lamar was granted the time, with also a really good offensive line, granted the time to evolve as a quarterback because of how the Ravens approach that situation. I don't think Lamar maybe doesn't turn into this elite quarterback if the Ravens don't approach it the same way that they did. And I think Jalen Milroe, it kind of needs to be approached in a very similar light. If you put him out there and it's 11 personnel 60% of the time and we're running the quick game and we're doing all this on early downs, I don't know if that's going to fully work. But like Daniel Jones back in 2022, where we're doing some of that stuff, and then we're sprinkling in the deep explosive stuff, yes, 100%. So that I am way more enticed by Jalen Milroe, exact same reasons that you said, because I like to look at, I want to bet on the high-end traits of you being a top 10, top 7 Super Bowl winning quarterback instead of, hey, we just filled the need at quarterback and we can just say that we have one. Right. That is why I am particularly very selective at quarterback. All right, now, the position that I love the most in this year's draft. And every year I've just found I love watching interior defensive linemen the most. Every single year, even though there's not like strong drafts. I know there's been the last couple of years, there's been pretty thin drafts. I mean, Joe Schoen has even said that himself about some of these last couple drafts with interior defensive linemen. Yeah. Alfred Collins or Omar Norman-Lott. And I don't know if you can get two more of opposite players, at least of what their trump cards are and what their skills are. I will say they are similar because I think they can both use their arms well, and I think they have long arms. So that is where they're similar, but I mean, one is the ultimate run stuffer, and then I think the one is the ultimate pass rusher. Which one do you prefer? Which one are you going with?
Yeah, totally different players, but I think you nailed, and it's important to note to start what they have in common. It's the length, and it comes to arm length, the wingspan. This is something that I remember our same defensive line coach we have now, Andre Patterson, saying when he drafted Jordan Riley a couple years ago, what we let, because me and Nick are like, what happened? This dude's tape's not to be an ass, but this dude's tape is not great, and he's 7th-round pick. But
Jordan Riley was not very good.
Right. Right. So it ended up. But what he said, what he liked about him, Andre Patterson, was the length and the knockback. And I think that's what they look for, because every single one of these interior defensive linemen they brought in for top 30s and they've been rumored to be interested in has that length, that arm, like that reach, that knockback. And so both these guys have that. I like that you brought that up first. For me, and while they're completely different players and they'd offer something completely different, for me, it's Alfred Collins. Alfred Collins is one of my guys in this class. I'm a big fan of my evaluation of him, despite understanding, Justin, that I do think he is limited and has not a lot of upside as a pass rusher at the NFL level. Right. I don't care, because I don't think you have to get him at 34. I think both these guys are in play at 65. I think Lott may even fall to 99. Not saying it will happen, but I think it's possible, versus Collins, who I think is in this range, that 65 to 75 range is like exact for him, because there's not a lot of pass rush upside, so he won't go any higher. But what he does well as a run defender, he might be the best in this class. And remember how valuable A'Shawn Robinson, maybe not the best in this class, there's too many good guys at the top, but he's the best of the guys that will be available at 65 by far, and probably the best of what will be available at 34. Not that I want him to take him there, but remember A'Shawn Robinson, what he offered for this Giants defense. They didn't re-sign him. He had one good year. It was so important. We need a player like Alfred Collins so much. 6'5", 337, 34 and 5-inch arms. One thing I love about him is that he had 6 batted passes. 3 of them led to interceptions. And you watched those. I watched all 6 of them. He doesn't have lateral agility. I'm not going to call him the best athlete. His vertical jump was like sub 30. I think it was 28 or 29 inches, which is insanely bad. Like,
it was 26.
Possible 26 inches. Yikes. Nick said on our show that even Dan Schneier could outjump him. Me, that is not happening. And I don't know if you are either, Justin.
Come to the combine. We'll test it out next year.
Maybe Nick can. I don't even know if he can. But point being, it's not great. And I don't think there's upside when it comes to his pass rushing. But he has a different level of athleticism. Maybe it's IQ. I described him maybe as like hand-eye coordination. I don't know, but he does a really good job of getting those long arms up to bat those passes, which makes a difference. 6 batted passes, 3 of them led to game-changing interceptions. That's huge, but it's what he does in the run game. And I'll tell you what, man, it's everything in the run game. There are times, 2 reps that stood out against Michigan to me when I watched this tape there, of where he's responsible for 2 gaps, and he destroys a play because the play is designed to go into the first gap. He's so quick with his and so good with his hands that he gets to that first gap. The running back sees that. He's like, all right, shit, I got to bounce it back into the other gap. It's the other gap that Collins is responsible for. Collins gets there and he makes the play. And I'm like, dude, you just are responsible for 2 gaps and you still stop the play. And then there's reps like against Georgia. It's like a 3rd and short where he'll just stack and shed and put a lineman right on the ground. His one-on-one matchup. He's not double teamed there. And then boom, he gets to the running back, blows up that play, beats that running back to that gap. I think he literally could immediately be, for the Giants, one of their best run defenders. And he's exactly what they need right now. We talked at the beginning of this podcast. What did we talk about? We said, man, the run defense has been killing the Giants. Man, we want to start to get back to investing in the trenches and getting these kind of players. And the way that Nick described them, which by the way I like, Justin, is when we've had our Super Bowl winning teams, we've had Fred Robbins, we've had Barry Cofield. None of them are star players, but they're foundation pieces.
Oh, yeah.
Every winning team needs a foundation piece, needs multiple foundation pieces, honestly. He's one of the foundation pieces. You can find him in the draft at 65 overall. People are like, oh, wow, he's 24. He didn't play a lot. Yeah, you wouldn't play either if you were playing behind Fondre Sweat. Those the Texas defensive tackles.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah, they had 5-star first and second round draft picks. So he finally got a chance to start this year and had his best year by far. That's no coincidence. That's the type of player that he is. And I'm really excited about Collins. He's a my guy for me. He's my favorite guy at 65. And it's a reason why, Justin, at 34, I'm not as gung-ho on needing interior defensive linemen because I like the guys that will be available at 65. Now, Norman-Lott, player I'd be interested in as well. I mean, you watch him, his low center of gravity. Like, you know, we're talking about in the offseason, I said this to Nick, we're talking about potentially putting Evan Neal over at right guard. God damn, if you had Norman-Lott matched up against Evan Neal in a one-on-one, he would beat him every
Evan Neal's going to wind up on the ground every play.
He just can't even get down there, bending at the waist. Like, he gets so low in his pass rush.
Also because he's naturally short, which I think actually works for him because he's a little bit lighter.
Exactly.
And the fact that he's lighter and shorter and he's, 70th percentile arm length, like that's awesome. Like if you can get lower man wins is what my old man used to say growing up and playing football.
He's right.
If you're lower, you're going to win. And that's what makes Norman-Lott enticing, because he has the pass rush productivity is kind of off the charts. And even though I think it was some 80 run defense snaps that he had this past year, because Tennessee, the stock exchange guys at PFF, they use the term of like Tennessee would use like a hockey rotation. Like they would literally have, all right, all these guys are coming off the field.
He averages 17 snaps a game.
Which is nuts. It's like, this is a guy that I think is a good player and he deserved more snaps. But it got down to only like 80 run defense snaps. But still, I think there is some run defense stuff there. But I'm with you where I did a mock draft early in the month. Like I took Alfred Collins there. If I do another one next week, I want to take him 65 again. This is a guy that I do not want to back down from. And I don't mind if there is a somewhat limited pass rushing ceiling there. I think he can unlock it. Like I see the strength that he has in the run game. Like it's not necessarily the strength that he has in the run game is not going to result in a ton of negative plays. Like if you look at his average depth of tackle in terms of how that ranks among this class, it's not great, but he's also 12th in total run stops. So what does that tell me? It tells me that this dude isn't getting moved off the line.
Right.
Like, and if you look at the film and it's like, all right, well, I have these two stats. We're good at run stops. Average depth of tackle's not good. What does that mean? The film's like, all right, we're not producing a ton of negative plays, but we're a powerful player that can handle double teams and that can also use his hands. That is the main thing. The main thing that I have kind of learned this year from watching offensive linemen, tackles, interior guys, and interior defensive linemen. I have almost divided people that use their hands well and use their hands as a weapon and an advantage, and people that don't. Like, I get so mad at Joshua Farmer. It's like, why are we not using our hands more? Why are we not using our arm length more? There are times where you're putting your head down and you're running into offensive linemen and you're not making plays. And there are times where you're stacking and shedding and it looks great. Alfred Collins uses his hands already well. And, let's have a guy go to Andre Patterson. He can fix his hands. Well, let's give Andre Patterson somebody whose hands are already freaking awesome. And now we can dominate even further and Andre Patterson can unlock even further. So I'm with you. And like there's been Ashawn Robinson. And outside of that, the investment at interior defensive linemen in terms of stopping the run has not been there. And I understand the cornerbacks are a huge part of why the run defense has struggled over the last couple of years. Maybe a second safety next to Tyler Nubin, that kind of guy. I think Pinnock was pretty good at it too. I don't think he was a total liability. But a commonality between these two defensive coordinators that have come in here is that they've literally been number one in run defense in their past places. And then they come here and they're the worst. I think it's a personnel thing. And I think Alfred Collins could go a long way into fixing that. And there could even, I think it could take some time with Collins too. I think a draft crush a lot of people had a couple years ago was Travis Jones. Mm-hmm. And you're looking at year one and year two and you're like, oh, this ain't looking too good. But now you look at year three and this past year with the Baltimore Ravens and things are turning on a little bit. And same thing with Dexter Lawrence, except that's obviously a much better example of a guy turning into a superstar. But I think it sometimes takes a little bit of time for these interior defensive linemen. But Collins has the traits, but he already does the things now that you would want a run-stopping, really damn good interior defensive lineman to do, and he does it. So I'm with you. Like I think,
and I won't blame anyone for preferring Omar Norman-Lott because I do think that Omar Norman-Lott has more upside than Alfred Collins personally.
Yeah,
because I think he has the ability to play the run in the pass. I do not personally believe in Collins' ability to be a pass rusher. At the end
I don't either.
But I don't care at 65. I don't want a project that might be good at both, but might end up being bad at good at neither. I want the guy that I know is going to be really good at one of these two things, and it's the thing that I think they need the most to have a 6'5", 337 long arm player there. Especially because, dude, you look at the tape and just this defense with Bowen. He's coming back for year two. I think year two is going to be much better. I think he's going to be better. I think the team's going to be better personnel-wise. But they just put too much on the plate of the linebackers last year. I want somebody like Collins in there in the interior with Dex, where now the linebackers are responsible for so much less because yes, Okereke is a pretty good player. McFadden's a pretty good player. They're not Fred Warner. I don't want them responsible for a million different things. So I think that helps that too. All
right. Well, here's your running backs. We'll run this. I think we have a little bit of time, but want to be aware of that. Amarion Hampton at 34 or Cam Skattebo day 3. And I think anybody that follows you or is listening to Big Blue Banter, I think they know exactly where you're going to go.
Yeah, they know where I'm going. It's Cam Skattebo on day 3, and he will go on day 3, by the way, because of his height and his bad 40 time. It's the only reason, and some questions about his pass protection, which are real, and those are the reasons why he won't get drafted earlier, despite everything else about his profile being absolutely phenomenal. And I was so happy, Justin, when I found out that the Giants brought him in for a visit. Also, he's 23. That's another knock, quote unquote, on why he might not go higher.
But I mean, on age, I look at how many carries you get in college and the tread on your tires at college more than the age. And I think you agree with that too, because like how many running backs are we going to sign to their second contract? Right. And like, oh, you're getting 4 years, and oh, when you sign to your second contract, you'll be 32. I don't really care about that.
Drafting older backs has become one of the biggest cheat codes for NFL GMs. It's how the Giants found Tracy last year. It's an understanding of, I don't need these guys until they're 35 because they're running backs. And he's not the two. It's no coincidence that the two best values I see in this draft class by far at running back are Cam Skattebo and RJ Harvey. They're both 23 and 24. But let's just start with Skattebo, who, listen to this stat, who has the highest career avoided tackle rate, which there's two advanced stats that translate the best at the running back position: avoided tackles and yards after contact. Who has the highest career avoided tackle rate versus power 4 defense when you filter out just the games against power 4 with a minimum of 250 rushes among running backs drafted in round 3 or earlier since 2017? And he may not go in round 3. I think the Giants can get him on day 3 in round 4. It's Cam Skattebo. That's an insane stat to have, and it shows up in the tape. Like, he runs with such a low center of gravity, so much fight in every single rep that he has, and he becomes really difficult to tackle. He creates a lot of missed tackles and a lot of yards after contact with his rushing style. But it's not just that why I like him. He's one of the best receivers in this class, the 4th best yards per route run, and he runs a variety of routes, and he can do even more. He was like the whole offense for Arizona State. These guys were like the whole offense for their teams. Those are the guys I like. I'm so happy the Giants are interested in so many of them. Even Ollie Gordon, who I didn't like at first and I warmed up to when I watched his 2023 tape, he was the whole offense for Oklahoma State. Skattebo, the whole offense. These guys, when they show they can be the whole offense for a team, Tyrone Tracy had moments of that too. It shows me that they're really valuable players because they have a responsibility to do a lot of different things. And his scrimmage yard totals, his efficiency metrics, they're all off the charts, and they're all off the charts for Skattebo. I mean, he had 10 straight 100-plus yard games in 2024 to close out the season. That is taking over and dominating as his team goes on to the college football playoff. And the efficiency metrics are there when it comes to yards after contact, forced missed tackles. He did good against stronger competition. He got even better. Like I said, he impacts the game as a receiver. So for me, and that question, even though I really like Amarian Hampton, it's Cam Skattebo. But I'll also say this, Justin. We had Jacob Gibbs on from CBS Sports yesterday to break down the running back class. We went 25 deep of guys we really like. 25 guys. Mm-hmm. We had a guy like Jarquez Hunter, who I like a lot, out of Auburn. He would be, based on his size, his speed, and his efficiency metrics, he would be a top 4 or 5 back in almost any other draft class. He's not even discussed. No one even talks about him. And he may go higher than people think because the NFL teams are recognize him, but he doesn't even get discussed. And this class is 20 to 25 deep. So I love Skattebo, Justin, but I'll tell you this. If they don't take Skattebo, because they'll have to get him, I think, at 99 or 105, when we get to 155, the best player on the board is going to be a running back. When we get to the next pick, the best player on the board is going to be a running back. And so I don't totally mind if they pass, because I think you're going to be able to get value at the position all the way throughout day 3.
Yeah. Something that I've found very unique about this class, I don't know everybody, but Skattebo is, he's 219 pounds, I believe.
Yeah.
219 pounds. Quinshon Judkins is over 220 pounds. Damian Martinez is over 220 pounds. Caleb Johnson's over 220 pounds. The two names that I have had in my head through this entire draft process are James Conner and David Montgomery, where I feel like those types of backs are almost making a little bit of a resurgence.
Yeah.
Now, I think the offensive coordinator at Arizona is awesome. I think he's a future head coach. So obviously the offensive line at Detroit, you had Ben Johnson. So that, their situations are very, very good. But I just think seeing those types of backs flourish over the last 2 years, Montgomery, James Conner has been part of, I think James Conner and the Arizona Cardinals they were the most efficient rushing offense at least 2 years ago, and it continued this year when they had Kyler full time. And those are backs. Connor's bigger at 230, but David Montgomery is in the 220s. And seeing a lot of backs around the same size, where in years past, and I still think this stat is true, in years past, you're sitting there and saying the running backs with the highest explosive run rate, the highest explosive rate, those are the running backs that translate best to the NFL. And I use James Cook as an example.
Yeah.
Like I loved James Cook a couple years ago, and I would have been fine even with Saquon Barkley on the team in 2022 if they did spend like a 3rd-round pick on James Cook. It took him a couple years, and he's evolved into somebody really nice. And I think it's because of that kind of stat. Like he's an explosive back and do multiple different things. But now I'm with you. Where this year, looking at the strengths of the class and kind of who these guys are, I am very much looking at yards after contact per attempt. I love Damian Martinez in that regard. I mean, Skattebo has 103 missed tackles forced on 294 attempts. That's absurd.
Yeah.
Like that is absolutely absurd. So I've kind of
it when you watch his tape, the way he runs, it's infectious. It's gonna work.
Yeah, I've shifted my kind of how I've watched some of these guys this year. I'm like, all right, and what's nice is that a lot of these guys, while still not having this top end, that home run speed, they're still getting explosive runs and they're still making guys miss. And because they're able to either make guys miss in the open field, or they're able to just break tackles by running dudes over, which is a ton of fun. One final one. Giants have had top 30 visits with both of these guys. Quinshon Judkins or Caleb Johnson out of the University of Iowa.
It's Quinshon Judkins for me. Now, there are some concerning stats that Jacob Gibbs brought up. Judkins was way more efficient against non-Power 5 opponents and Power 5 opponents.
Yeah.
It's a concern, and I think his production at Ole Miss, that system, man, that Lane Kiffin system, it's just like, it's so damn good, and it takes advantage of the college rules so much more than anyone but the Heupel, but the Tennessee Heupel system. And so Dart looks great in it, and Trey Harrison, he's building up all these NFL receivers and backs, but I worry a little bit about that. But the size, the speed with Judkins, the processing, it's all there. Caleb Johnson, I like a lot.
I do too.
Just don't like the fit for the Giants with Caleb Johnson. I need him in a wide zone, outside zone scheme. We do mix in our concepts. We've been better with that under Dable and really even with Bobby Johnson, but now as well with Carmbrasil. But we're not an outside zone team, and we really don't have the receivers, in my opinion, to block for an outside zone team. And you need those in an outside zone scheme. You need receivers who are damn good blockers. You can't have Wan'Dale Robinson on the field in an outside zone scheme. So it just doesn't fit what I want, Caleb Johnson. But I think Caleb Johnson is a better player, and I really like Caleb Johnson. He averaged 8.4 yards per carry in the 4th quarter. Like, wore defenses down, got better as the game went. But for me, it's Judkins because I think he fits us better.
Okay. I love that set because that was the first half, second half splits of Saquon Barkley this year.
Yeah,
was always just really fun to follow. So that's what I thought of when I saw that set with Caleb Johnson. So, Dan, this has been fun, man.
Oh yeah, love talking ball, love talking draft with you.
You got me you literally got me fired up. I'm about
to
go in this warehouse. Like I actually the football pad that we use at the JM Football Combine every year, and it was the pad that you can put on a sled. Like growing up, I had a big we had a big backyard. And my father built like a sled. So then we built, he bought like a pad. Yeah. And I would hit that pad. So I actually still have that pad here because I'm like, it was expensive. I'm not getting rid of that pad. So we use it for the combine every year. We used it as a dummy. And I'm like, I'm ready to go upstairs and find that thing and hit it. So we're going to get better. Giants are going to get better. We're going to be back eventually.
Hopefully.
And I'm excited about it. But Dan, plug whatever you want to plug. People know where to find you. Big Blue Banter. Plug whatever you want to plug, and we'll get on out of here.
Yeah, check out the Big Blue Banter podcast if you haven't checked it out already. Just type in Big Blue Banter on YouTube. We have put out a podcast episode every day of the week for the last month. We've had guests on.
Really good guests, too.
Jacob Gibbs, a lot of people who are just breaking down tape. But we also have prospect profiles on everyone the Giants may draft. We just did 2 episodes breaking down every single player from the top 30 visits. Yes. And as I said at the top of the show, that's important. The Giants drafted 10 of those players over the last 3 years. And more to come. We're doing a 7-round dueling mock. We're doing our My Guys episode, which people love every year, which is our favorite values in the class. So check us out there. And if you like fantasy football, check out CBSSports.com, Fantasy Football Today. You'll find me on the FFT show and content on the website as well, CBSSports.com, draft coverage. I've done draft profiles, in-depth draft profiles on a lot of different players, so you can find that there.
One of the first things I actually did this month is I actually did like the first 15 wide receivers on the consensus board. Like I wish we could talk wide receivers too, because I'm fascinated by this class. Like I would love a Jaden Higgins in a round 2, or even the back end of round 1, way more than like a Emeka Egbuka, which may be like a crazy thing, but I'm fascinated by how the wide receiver, like where the wide receivers are going to go, because I don't think, especially the ones at the top, I don't view them to be like alpha number one, like have these expectations that they can really take over. But there's going to be receivers that are going to be picked in round one simply because teams need receivers and they value that.
I hope there's a lot of receivers that go in round one.
I hope
Giants'
there's
sake.
a run.
Yeah.
We need there to be a run on wide receivers
And corners.
for sure.
My God, I love a corner run.
We're
We're not going corner. We don't need corner. We just invested in corner, crazy amounts of capital, draft capital, and free agent money. I hope so many corners go.
There's only 11 corners inside the top 105 on the consensus board, which is crazy because usually it's the run on wide receiver and corner in round one. And I hope we get it, but we may not get it. That may turn into a trench position, and we're going to be, continue. If you're a diehard Giants fan, don't turn off the draft after pick 3, because however else the draft goes in the back end is going to really impact what they do or what they may not do. So, Dan, thank you so much for coming on, man. I'll have you on May and June after the draft, and we'll talk some more ball. And we'll talk about this team. So, I have a running joke that I end the show by saying I'm still working on an outro because I don't know how to quite end these yet. Still working on an outro. I'll see you when I see you. Have a good weekend.